When talking about taking responsibility, I think about building community, and I want to share with you one of my community building stories from my grade 9 class. I tried to take notes on it all as it was happening because it was so amazing, and I want to share it with you today because it is so entirely linked to my inquiry, even though I didn't know it at the time that it was actually happening. On my first day with my grade 9s as an introductory activity, I had the kids draw a timeline. On one side of the line, they wrote world, and on the other, they wrote me. And for the next 10 to 15 minutes, they had to predict future events of the world and future events for themselves. There was no time limit, and they could predict as far into the future as they saw for both the world and for themselves. Once they filled in their timelines, I drew a long line on the board, and each person came up and wrote one thing from each portion of their timelines. As you can imagine, they dreamt up some pretty inspired goals and predictions for themselves. Everything from getting their driver's licenses, to writing best-selling novels, to becoming snowboard champions and prom queens. On the other hand, their predictions for the future of the world were very dismal. Running out of water, wars over resources, the world spontaneously exploding, people assassinated, hate crimes, amalgamated religions into one dominant ideology, and the list goes on and on and on. And I thought, yes! So we went and spent the next 10 minutes looking at the board and discussing what was on the timeline. I asked them if they could see any connections or reasons for what they saw. They were pretty chatty and all over the place, but I finally laid the Teacher Kate discipline on and all but yelled, "Why do you think that our predictions for our own futures are positive and exciting and filled with hope and dreams and ambition, but our predictions for the future of the world are dismal, dark, and sometimes even scary?" The classroom went dead silent. They went from being entirely rambunctious and frustratingly loud to being stone silent. At first, I thought it went totally over their 28 heads, and I started mentally punching myself in the head until one girl slowly raised her hand and said, "Miss Sam, I think it's because we're selfish and we can't see outside our own little bubbles." And then I realized they weren't confused, they were thinking and engaged, and the answers began to flow. Some of them were as follows: because we don't think that we play a role in anything going on in the world. That the world has so much hate in it, why does it matter if I am happy and most of the world isn't? I don't think I have a purpose in the world, so I believe I will be happy and achieve success if I keep it to myself. I just don't know how I could change the world. Maybe it's because the world tries to control us and what we should do or think or wear. Maybe I don't want to connect the two because then I can't be myself. I think people are afraid to admit that they are a part of something bigger. We don't look at our futures and the world's future as the exact same thing. My future is unrealistic, Miss Stam, because that's what dreams are. I don't dream much for the world because I don't really know what it wants or what it needs. And it went on and on. It was incredible. I was thrilled, and I couldn't believe the connections they made for themselves once they were given the chance. My last question about the timeline was contingent on the final date listed. The last prediction was set for 2065. Perfect. So I said to them, after all that, why do you think we, selfish and unaware grade 9 students, were only able to predict until 2065? Does anyone have any ideas? And the room went quiet again, and then my student that barely even shows up to class, let alone participate, says, "Duh, Miss Stam. Selfish people can't see past their own lifespan, so we only think of what we're doing and just do it, forgetting the bad impact it might have on the world. But that's unfair to my kids and to their kids and the rest of the people in the world that will live longer than 2065, isn't it, Miss Stam?" Yep, that's what I thought. And I'm so glad they came to that conclusion themselves. And then he says, "Well, I guess that taught me two things, Miss Stam. Number one, I have a lot of changing and learning to do. My world is far too small right now if I want to be a part of the big world in a big way. And number 2, I am so not ready to have kids. Clearly, I have to figure some stuff out first. And in the days to follow, our communities seem to build upon the ideas of their voices and thoughts and the truths they discovered for themselves. So that's a little welcome to my Social Studies 9 class, where we love visitors, friends, fun, exploring history, and exploring the world.
You have